I am Korean American. When I was younger, it was just my mother, my grandmother, and my younger brother. My grandmother was a naturalized citizen of the United States, and I am the first of the first generation in my family. My grandmother brought my mother to Hawaii in the senior year of what would have been her high school year. My mother was not able to get into a traditional college, so she went to a business school. My grandmother always seemed to be a little disappointed that my mother did not have a traditional American secondary education. My mother also did not graduate from business school because she became pregnant with me in her second year and had to drop out. For Asian Americans, whether they are Korean, Japanese, Chinese, or any other Asian, education is the single most important status symbol. This is my single story. Not just education, but good grades was expected. This meant all A's, no B's or C's were allowed. For me, creative classes such as English, history, and social studies were what earned me the A's. But science classes that were based on logic and fact, like chemistry and math, always caused me what I now recognize as anxiety. Starting in sixth grade, when I began taking classes like geometry and fractions and decimals, my grade point average dropped dramatically because I just could not fathom the ideas of math. I still really can't, and I have yet to use algebra, calculus, or chemistry in any part of my everyday life. The disappointment from my grandmother and my mother was palpable whenever I brought home anything less than an A. What my family does not know is that all through junior high school and high school, the only reasons my grade in math and science went up is because the other kids bullied me into doing their homework. You're Asian, they said. You're good at this stuff. You'd better get me a good grade or I'll beat your ass. I stayed up late at night, not because I was being studious, but because I didn't want to get beaten. In my senior year of high school, as I was applying for colleges, my mother and grandmother wanted me to go to Harvard or Yale. They stated Stanford was okay, but it wasn't good enough. They also reminded me that as a girl, it was my duty to stay home and take care of the family. So there would be no moving out, no moving away, ever. Even after I was married and began to have children, I was expected to bring my husband into the family home and take care of everyone. There was no career path for me, just an educational one, and even that I would have to give up should the family need me to. I was also expected to have a Korean husband and produce Korean children. My mother and grandmother were very disappointed in me when I got into a CSU rather than a Harvard, Yale, Stanford, USC, or even a UC. Again, the disappointment was palpable. They felt that a CSU just wasn't good enough, and therefore I was expected to start working in the family restaurant to help support everyone because I didn't have to be paid. In my second year of college, I was told I had to leave school and work full time because the family needed me. I didn't know better. I thought that was the way it was supposed to be, so I did as I was told. I never went anywhere because I never had any money. My education was halted because that was what the family needed of me. That does not mean that my grandmother and my mother ever let me forget that I quit school. What they forget is that they made me because I'm a female. And as the oldest female, I am obligated to place my life on hold for the sake of family. That is my single story. My grandmother passed away in June of 2009, but presently my brother and my mother are pressuring me into quitting this doctoral program. After having earned my bachelor's degree when my grandmother was still alive, I thought she would have some pride in me, but that was not the case. She told me that had I stayed in school, I would have had a PhD by now, forgetting that she and my mother made me quit school to begin with. Even after 2 graduate degrees, my mother has never expressed to me that she was proud of me, because had I stayed in school, I would have had a PhD. Even today, April 2021, my mother and my brother are pressuring me to quit this program because there is so much work to do. I can feel the disappointment from my mother that I did not marry a Korean man. I did not have children at all. And even though I work 12 to 14 hours a day while attending school, I still do not have a PhD at 50 rather than acquiring it when I was in my 20s. Chimamanda said stories can break the dignity of a people. The story of my younger years and even the current state of my life feel like I am at the breaking point. The point where I just want to give up because I feel like I'm ever present disappointment in my family's life. But Chimamanda also said that stories can repair that broken dignity. Therefore, I will not give up. I will continue until I reach the end, and I hope and pray that I can influence some woman, no matter their race, to persevere and continue on, because if I can do it, then so can you. Now that I know that there are other roads that a person can take, whether alone or with others by their side, this is no longer a single story.